First, my name is Spencer Rands. I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. Both of my parents are from Utah, so my father's from the Salt Lake area and my mother from the Vernal area. So I spent a lot of time in the summers learning to love and enjoy Utah, its culture, its people, and ultimately knew from a young age that I thought this is where I was going to go to college and raise a family, and that has been the case. I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Paraguay. I learned to speak Spanish, and that Spanish has served me well as I've continued to practice it. I don't think it's quite as good as it was when I served at 19 years old, but I've continued to use it in my professional and personal life, and it's served me well, and I think it'll continue to serve me on Orem City Council, as I know there's a lot of Orem residents that speak Spanish. I met my wife, Jana, at Southern Utah University. At the time that I met her, she'd already accepted a job at Tanner LLC, and so as we dated, eventually she moved to Salt Lake City to take that job, and I ended up transferring to the University of Utah, where I finished my my degree in business marketing, got my bachelor's degree from the University of Utah. It was there at the University of Utah that I learn to love local politics. Oftentimes when we think of Washington and the national politics, it's just so hard to be involved. About all we can do, it seems like, is vote. But at the local level, we can really get involved. And while I was at college, I started a business called the Armed Self-Defense Institute. We did firearms training and a lot of the Utah concealed carry permit classes. And the state was always passing laws and changing fees and doing things that affected my business. And so I started attending meetings at the state capitol. And it was there that I started attending committee meetings and even started to speak at them. And I realized that our representatives at the local level were very willing to listen and actually change things based on the input that they were receiving. And so that's something that I'd like to bring to Orem City is have representatives that listen, are willing to look at both sides, and that's something that I believe I can do well because I've been on the other side of it and seen how it can work well. It was at this time that my wife and I started our family after college. We have 5 kids now, with our most recent one just being 8 days old. Baby Gracie just barely came into the world, and she's doing great, but I do apologize if I seem tired. That's the reason. The newborn at home is definitely the reason for that. But after college and starting the family and doing all that, we owned, operated, and built 4 Papa Murphy's Pizza franchises. And in building those, we learned a lot of things that I believe will benefit me on Orem City Council. We built those in 3 different municipalities, different counties, different cities, and we found that some cities and municipalities were very easy to work with. They streamlined the process, and they wanted to get those jobs that we were bringing to their city as quick as possible. And while we still needed permits and we still had to do all the process and everything, inspections, they wanted to make it as easy as possible and get us up and running as quick as possible. Unfortunately, other cities were not that way at all. It almost seemed like they wanted it to take as long as possible, and everything was getting in our way. We had one of our stores that was delayed 9 months just in the planning process and everything because of all the different iterations and changes and constant, and that was 9 months of jobs that could have been brought to that city that weren't. And so that's something that I'd like to make sure that in Orem we're a business-friendly environment. Not saying that we don't have the regulations and the rules that need to be followed, but that we streamline the process and make sure that we're not getting in the way of businesses, but that we're actually helping them. Also, running those 4 restaurants, restaurants are a very nickel and dime business. You've got to know your labor costs, your food costs, your rent, everything like that has to be managed meticulously, because if you're not staying on top of it, then you're not going to make money, and that's why so many restaurants fail. And so I believe my success in running these restaurants and understanding the finances and the minutia that is budgeting and everything like that will benefit me here in Orem, because we want Orem to be Family City USA, and if it's too expensive for families to move here, then it can't be Family City USA. And so I believe that my financial experience there will help make sure that Orem is an efficiently run city so that it is affordable as possible to live here. when we sold those 4 Papa Murphy's restaurants, we decided to go full-time into the business that I started in college, the Armed Self-Defense Institute, and that business has since expanded into multiple states and is now nationwide. And so we could really move wherever we wanted to move and run that business, because it wasn't just focused on Utah. But we knew that we wanted to live in Utah, and so the only question was where, and so we chose Family City, USA, Orem, of course. That's where we decided to raise our family, and as soon as we got here, we dug in and we got involved. For the last 4 years, I've been on the Orem Care Tax Commission, where we determine where those care funds go, and making sure that those funds go to the right groups that are going to benefit Orem citizens, and it's been my pleasure to serve on that committee. Also in 2019, I advocated for a public safety commission to make sure that we were treating our first responders correctly, and ultimately in 2022 that commission was created, and I have served on that commission since its creation. Big supporter of our first responders. So I think all of those things, from running the restaurants to going through the building process and working with city council, having the financial background, business background, as well as serving here locally in Orem with the Public Safety Commission, Care Commission, are all things that are going to prepare me to be an effective member of Orem City Council. So my first priority on Orem City Council would be prioritizing our first responders. They need to be our first priority. They need to be taken care of. It's not always been the way it is today. In the past, we've had issues where first responders weren't getting what they needed in Orem, and they were leaving, and we weren't getting the experience that we needed on our police force and our fire department. And so we need to make sure that they're prioritized, because ultimately, while we all hope that none of us ever need our first responders, they're there every single day. And if we do need them on our worst day, we want to make sure that they are prepared, that they are trained, and that they are ready to do the job that they're here to do. And I want to make sure that we make sure that's a priority in Orem. I want to continue Orem's legacy of being Family City, USA. Orem has always been the place to raise a family, and it continues to be, which is why, we have our family here. And we need to make sure that as growth and all these challenges come to Orem, that we are taking them on and asking questions of how will this decision, how will this change affect Orem's family? And if it's not a positive change, well, then we shouldn't do it. We need to make changes that are positive for Orem's families. Lastly, I want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible, and that really ties into to both of the other priorities, is that if we're managing our budget correctly, if we're spending money where we need to be, making it affordable for families, making sure that we're spending the appropriate amount of money on our first responders and all those things, then Orem's going to be a success. But if we are not being efficient with those funds, then Orem won't be. So those 3 things would be some of my main priorities in Orem. I think one of Orem's biggest strengths is Orem City employees. I think they're kind of the unsung heroes that don't get as much credit as they need. But when you really look at some of these beautiful parks and beautiful services and everything that we have, if you went to Orem Fest and enjoyed that and loved that, if you went to the car show, to the parade, to all these things, all of things are made happen by our city employees here. All of our first responders, of course, is all part of that team as well. There's public works, pipes and sewage, and it's not very glamorous, but it all works every single day. And I think that that's one of the big strengths of Orem City, is these employees that keep everything working. And so I think if we want Orem to continue to be a wonderful place to live, then we need to make sure that we're taking care of those employees. And I think we've done well, but I want to make sure we continue that. I think that the biggest issue facing Orem is just the massive amount of growth that we're going to see over the next 5 to 10 years. It's not just an Orem thing, but Utah County as a whole is just seeing tons and tons of growth. And I think that comes as, a lot of things. The success of Silicon Slopes, the success of Family City USA, being a place that people want to come, right? a place that people want to have families. That's the reason for this growth. And so we have to look at that as a challenge, but also as an opportunity, as a positive. Challenges that we're going to be facing is traffic and planning and development. And all of these things, if done responsibly, if done effectively, if thought ahead about, okay, well, where will the cars go? Where's the parking going to be? How will we manage this so it doesn't negatively affect this area? Does this area have the infrastructure for the particular build? Because not everything can go in every single lot. There has to have the proper infrastructure, from the road to the parking to the services that it needs to operate correctly, proximity to the right things. And so all of those things has to be looked at. And I think if we make good, responsible decisions in regards to this growth, then Orem's going to be a wonderful place to live going forward. Absolutely. I think it's important that people know that I am running independently. I'm not tied to any specific group or special interest group. I'm running unencumbered. I am running for the citizens of Orem. So that's something that you can count on, that my votes haven't already been purchased. I've not already committed to anything. I'm here to hear both sides of any given issue and then make the decision that ultimately is going to be the best for Orem. And to go with that, I want to make sure that I'm accessible, because like I said, I learned going to meetings at the Capitol, that accessible elected officials can be really, really effective. And so I want to make sure that people can have access to me, whether it be texting me or calling or sending me emails. All of these ways will be available on my website, voterands.com. You can get a hold of me. And I want to continue that, not just during the campaign, but afterwards, because I want to make sure I understand both issues. Because if I make a decision based on just one side, then it's not going to be a good decision. We have to understand both sides of every issue. All of the parties, all of the stakeholders need to be heard. We need to make sure we're giving the citizens the opportunity to hear or to give in their input and actually listen, not just make a decision and then go through the motions of hearing the citizens. We actually need to listen, and after we've listened and after we've understood, then make those decisions. So my name is Spencer Rands, and I'm asking for your vote for Orem City Council.